We've been in her home, but even a bigger picture. This woman has so much grit, and she's an advocate to make us the best version of ourselves. We have one of the most foremost doctors in the nation, definitely in the state of Florida, and we get to work with some of the most amazing doctors. But in particular, this woman is board certified internal medicine. I said that right. And board certification in anti-aging and regenerative medicine. She's had a stem cell fellowship that's up to currently now from 2012. This woman is cutting edge. And her practice is the forefront in the panhandle of Florida with integrative anti-aging practice out of Gulf Breeze, Florida. So please, in the chat, give it up for Dr. Deborah Viglione. I'm just so honored to be on the Zoom today. I've been anxious all day and preparing for you. And we just love your wisdom and how much you've shared. You've changed my life. And I know you've changed hundreds, if not thousands, in this in the nation, in the state of Florida in particular. So welcome. So excited to be with you. Could you do me a favor and share your beautiful story and where you came from? And I know you've served our country as well, and thank you for your service. So kind of start off on there. I love for our viewers to hear your beautiful story.
Well, I was traditionally trained like everybody, in internal medicine, prescribing pharmaceuticals, and, you have a symptom, you have a drug for it. And I did that for years, and I made all the numbers look really good, but nobody came in and said, thanks, doc, I feel great. Thank you. I feel better. I'm not aging, they would come in, can I get off all this stuff? So anyway, God had other plans for me. And I was in the Air Force, and one of my, residents that I was training actually had background in alternative medicine and was going to go into an 80% alternative clinic. And he helped me out with some personal problems, enough to build my belief that natural worked, that it's not just about drugs. And that just progressed. And when I got out of the military, that's when chronic fatigue syndrome was hitting, fibromyalgia, Gulf War illness. Nobody had a clue what to do with these people. And I knew just a teeny bit because I'd been in California about one herb, echinacea, which helps build your immune system. And I sent people to go get that for a cold. And the health food store started sending all their people to me because they thought, oh, she knows something about natural medicine, which I really knew nothing. But these people were coming to me desperate for help. And I just had to dig in and call that resident up and just learn. And tried to turn them away, but they wouldn't go away. So that was God's plan, that I was supposed to move more into natural medicine, and it's just been a progressive journey since. And I do use drugs, which we're going to find out tonight. I've got 20 years experience with these, but only if they're helpful. And I really want to get people healthy.
I love it. I love it. You want to go ahead and pull your slides up, and we can kind of go from there. I think we have some disclaimers to go over, like always.
Yeah.
I love, so basically patients would come in and it would you'd have to research and delve into the spot. And this is over 20 years ago, which was really cutting edge, wasn't it?
Yes, with these drugs. Like you said at the beginning, I'm kind of a groundbreaker. And when these drugs came out and I learned the science, I was like, okay, this sounds good. So I was one of the early adopters and liked what I was seeing.
So we're talking about the GLP hormone.
The GLP-1 that we're going to talk about tonight.
So she not only was cutting edge in integrative medicine, but also in the use of this GLP hormone, which I knew very little about, even 6 months ago. So can we just go ahead? The objective tonight is to basically get you up to speed on the enormity of this hormone. And what Deb is going to do, Dr. Viglione is going to do, is tell you a little bit about the history, the way the pharmaceuticals have basically educated the public, and then how, again, bringing her natural, her belief in integrative medicine into that piece. So we're really excited. You want to go ahead and take over from here?
Oh gosh, the slides don't want to advance. Oh, there we go. Okay, so Sharon went over this. So I have to do a disclaimer because I'm not your doctor and I'm not trying to diagnose or treat you tonight. I'm just trying to educate you. This is for educational purposes only. And anytime you're embarking on, a health journey or doing something, you really should consult your practitioner because it is complicated and you want to have the support of somebody that knows what they're doing. Because I'm sure you've been to doctors and you tried to discuss supplements and they don't even want to hear it because they don't know anything about them.
That's not the experience.
Okay, so why is this important that you're on this webinar tonight? Why should you learn about GLP-1? And it's because we're all aging. We start aging after about age 20. And you really don't notice it much. You certainly don't notice it in your 20s. You hit your 30s. And when I always said, well, I was having babies and I was just busy and tired, you hit your 40s and then you get your first wrinkles and you're like, oh, what happened? You're just like, this is awful. And then you really missed a chance to get on board and prevent a lot of this. But one of the biggest problems that I see with aging is fatigue. People don't have the energy they want and they've got progressive weight gain that they can't get off. Number one, they don't even feel like exercising. Depending on how heavy they are, they don't have the energy to do it. And, there's so many tempting foods that are bad and they can't control their appetite. So this is something that you really want to get into early on, start developing a healthy lifestyle. And I think we need a little bit of help because our world is so toxic. And I love what RFK has been educating the public on the toxicity of the foods and what's in them. When I was little, they came out with Captain Crunch and Fruit Loops and all those foods, and they made them advertise that they were really good for you. And my mother thought she was giving me good food. And then I think about what that did to my whole glucose insulin system that we're going to get into tonight. But I really believe it's progressive toxicity in our foods and the environment that has created this problem where our bodies aren't functioning like they're supposed to, and we need to give them some help. And I think corn syrup is one of the biggest offenders.
Tell me about that corn syrup. Like, what is it? Like, it's just processed sugar? What is it?
Yeah, it's much, it's worse than that. It's, I forget if it's a 5-carbon, but it's much sweeter. I think it's like 20 times sweeter than sugar. And so that's why Coca-Cola put it in their products because it's addicting. People want sugar. And then when you're eating sugar, your microbiome, all the bacteria in your intestine are cultivated to want sugar. So they make you have sugar cravings. It's so addictive. And then the fact too, it's all GMO now, and that's not good for us, the genetically modified foods. So, and if you don't start, you're going to be sorry because I guarantee you later on, you're going to be looking for answers.
Do you always read labels on everything?
I do.
Yeah. And so if it's in there, you try to eliminate it.
It's there almost every product, especially if you're looking at, like, say, sausage and hot dogs. There will be a small amount of corn syrup in it. Again, it's addicting, and that sweet flavor is what's drawing people to it. Like, here's an example. I've got some really old cookbooks, like great-grandmother cookbooks. And I made muffins when my kids were little off of one of them. They thought they tasted like cardboard because there was only a 1/2 cup sugar. You do the same recipe now, and some of them are 3 cups of sugar. It's horrible.
Wow.
That's how our taste buds have changed.
So all of us are facing this problem of our environment, our food sources, our aging, weight gain, just from basically, it sounds like a lot of it are the root is food sources. So the concepts we're about to roll out to you are really critical for all of us, aren't they? I think
yes.
we were just talking about how we're even enlightened just researching, getting prepared for this webinar. So this is a big deal, everyone. This is a big deal. And what she's going to share with you is complex, but we're going to break it down as best we can. So you ready?
All right, let's launch.
All right, let's
Okay, so tonight I want to give you some history, and I'm going to be probably too scientific, and Jill's going to interrupt me to make sure that you understand about how the body uses insulin and the various hormones to keep your blood sugar at a safe level. And then we're going to get into the anti-aging. This is what blew me away. I knew when I was using these pharmaceuticals that everything was improving on their lab work, but I had no idea about the anti-aging benefits until I started delving deeply into this. And that's one of the things that I'm so just phenomenally excited about, that we now have a natural alternative. But we're going to go through how they work, so then you'll understand better how the new natural product is. Now, the company, I'm going to give you like the disclaimer, I am a consultant for this company called LifeVantage, and I was introduced to this at the big anti-aging conference I go to every year in Las Vegas, and I just got back from it, so I have some pearls from that to share. But
How many years ago you were introduced to
that? Was 2014, December 2014.
Wow.
And a friend of mine met Dr. Sean McHugh, who I hope is on here tonight, neuroradiologist, like the biggest brainiac I've probably ever met. Anyway, she's a lot of fun. And he was hanging out with her, and I think LifeVantage had their convention there that year, right before ours. And he was going there, and I said, oh my gosh, they're brainwashing you on this network marketing. And my experience with network marketing companies to that point were a lot of hype and little to no real objective science. So I was very jaded, didn't want to hang out with them. But if I wanted to have any fun, I had to hang out with these guys. So I went to dinner. They took me to one of those really expensive restaurants, and I was poking fun at them. I said, you guys are so gullible. And then the chief science officer at the time looked at me and said, we have 11 peer-reviewed studies. And I was like, what? And then if you don't understand, peer-reviewed means that there's a board that has looked at your study, and they usually have to send it back multiple times before they think it's like okay to be published. That's different than a white paper where it's internal research that hasn't been objectively evaluated. So, I told him, I said, one peer-reviewed study would have, put me on board, but 11. He goes, well, why don't you come to my lecture tomorrow? And I said, they're letting you lecture here? And so I was so insulting. It was awful. But they were so gracious, paid for my dinner. So I was going to skip the lecture. I wasn't going to go. But Dr. Sean McKee was on her phone, like, you come here, come on, we're sitting up front. And then he got into the science of our, we call it our signature product. It's the one in the blue bottle here. And he got into the science behind that. And it was about the root cause of aging and disease, which is called oxidative stress, which we'll talk about a little bit, but that's really another webinar. But he showed real science, and I had been praying for answers for my patients, because I knew none of what I was doing was really doing a whole lot for it. And when they showed the data, I almost fell out of my chair. I got chills. I said, this is amazing. I'm on board. How do I sign up? I'm here, and I love this company.
I've even heard like history in the making with these activators, right?
Yeah, so this company, we call ourselves an activation company, because what we're doing is we're looking at pathways in the body, and that's just basically a system and how it works in the different areas that you need to maybe supplement a mineral, but also how to turn the good genes on so that we actually reverse the aging process and improve our health span in our life. And so these are the main activators that we have, not all, but they're all groundbreaking, amazing, and they've hit the nail on the head again with this GLP-1.
I love it. So I often think about, I always use the word like a light switch. We flip on genes, or flip them up and down and clear the roadways, like a big map of our body. Would that be good? A good analogy?
Yeah, it's good, because most companies take research on ingredients, they take it from peer-reviewed studies, and then they just throw it into a product and never study the finished product. They don't know how those ingredients interact, what they're actually doing to the body. And if you ask them for, their peer-reviewed studies, they don't have them. So we're a unique company in that we study gene activation and study everything we do, and all our products are completely clean, tested for heavy metals, which is another thing most companies aren't doing.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing. But that's why I'm excited about this company, and I just love that they're into R&D, and they're always looking for the next best thing. And they always blow it out of the park.
So you're going to kind of reverse it right now and kind of go into the history of a GLP-1, right? Now I think that's where we're going with this. Okay, great.
Okay, so basically it's a hormone or a peptide, and a peptide is just a small portion of really a hormone. And the L cells in our gut, I don't know what they look like, but they're called L cells. That is what makes GLP-1 for us, and GLP-1 helps control our appetite and our sugar balance, our digestion, and favorably affects your weight. So you actually burn fat, you don't accumulate fat. And that's one of the problems with fat accumulation, because our toxins are largely stored in our fat. And you'll notice as you age, you develop a lot of abdominal fat. And that's where tons of it is stored. Now, they're stored in our organs too, like kidneys and brain, but fat's the biggest part. And the body doesn't want to expose you to those chemicals. So it just makes it harder to lose weight, because harder to burn fat, because the body doesn't want to poison us, because they have to get out of our body. So this is a way to kind of shortcut it and make the body eliminate these. But It's interesting is the history started out with this lovely little creature out in the Southwest desert. And they actually, it's called a Gilliam monster. And these researchers, I think it was because they knew that this lizard could live up to 3 years without eating. So they knew there's something unique about this. I don't know exactly how they studied it, but they found a peptide called exendin-4, and they looked at that. They initially were looking at it for a treatment for addiction, alcohol and drugs, because of the effect on the brain, on cravings. And now we know sugar is probably one of the biggest addictions out there. But they licensed it for use in 2005 as Byetta. Bydureon came along a little bit later, but I was one of the early adopters of Byetta because I saw the science, I saw the potential to really change the ballgame with a diabetic, because up to that point, everything we were treating actually made them worse in the long run. And the Byetta was tough.
So they're using a GLP-1 because typically a diabetic is overweight. That's what's causing that next disease state. Is that
they're overweight, and they've got too much sugar, and their insulin is high typically in type 2 diabetes, but it's not working. And high insulin levels slow your metabolism down and make you store fat. So they're not good. Byetta was tough though. It caused a lot of nausea. It had to be injected twice a day. You really had to talk your people through it. And then they came out with Bydureon, where it was a once a week dosing. They found a way to have it not broken down as fast. And that kind of paved the way for all of the new, now they're all weekly digest or done. But this was the earliest ones, and the newer ones now are much more powerful. But this,
now
okay.
Ginger, she's just telling you the history of this hormone and how it's gotten introduced to the marketplace. So this is fascinating, Deb.
Yeah, because I just want people to know, why this is such a big deal when we get it into our product. But so it was a total game changer in diabetes, because all of the drugs up to this point actually wore the pancreas out more, caused more weight gain, especially insulin, and actually made the progressive cardiovascular disease, the clogging of your arteries, your neuropathy, blindness, they all made it worse. And this was the first one that was actually doing good things in the body and reversing the problems. And so these are what the natural history of a diabetic was. Heart disease, strokes, poor circulation, amputations, kidney failure, dialysis, blindness, and then just more immobilization because they were getting heavier and heavier. Typically, when a diabetic is diagnosed, they've lost 80% of their insulin producing cells in their pancreas. So, now I think people are checking for things earlier, but it was not a good prognosis. So I thought this was cute. Because everybody's heard about, the semaglutide, but anyway, it's cute. So at my conference, we just got back, and I think this is really important because we'll talk later about, there's a lot of people out here kind of trashing, and there's a lot of myths out there that aren't true, but they estimate 42,000 deaths could be saved if people had better access to these medications, or in our case, a natural thing, and over 11,000 deaths annually with type 2 diabetes. And I would imagine it's even higher, that they've reduced cardiovascular disease, reduced kidney disease, heart attack, strokes, addiction, and more. It's very impressive how good, and I'm not a big pharma person. You guys know me, but these drugs have been amazing. And the number one risk factor, they kept talking about this, for disease and death is increased biological age. The older you get, the more likely you are to come down with something. And that's what we want to prevent. We want to increase our health span. I mean, personally, I want God to just beam me up. I don't want to go through any disease or death. I just beam me up when it's time. But you'll hear a lot, if you're in the anti-aging business, the wellness, is the really root cause of aging is oxidative stress. And we have a ton of other webinars you can get on, but that's basically an overabundance of free radicals which damage your cells. And damaged cells are inflamed. They release all these factors out in the body that are inflammatory because they want to be healed. But if it becomes a chronic condition, it just causes more damage. It's like a snowball effect. But they often use this term at our conferences, inflammaging, because you're aging because your body's inflamed. And that, there's multiple causes, but hormone imbalance is a huge one, whether it's glucose and insulin, or it's your thyroid or your sex hormones. As we know, as you age, you go through menopause, your ovaries quit working, men go through a decline in their testosterone. All that increases more inflammation, more aging. And then what we're going to get in tonight is the glucose insulin dysregulation and how that ties in with the gut and the brain. And the gut is what we call our second brain, but it's also fundamental in our immune system. And we need to keep our immune system strong and healthy so that we don't come down with other bugs or even worse, immortal cells. Now, it's interesting. I put genetics at the bottom because everyone thinks, well, everybody in my family, got sick and died at 50 of a heart attack or whatever. Genetics is not the most important risk factor. That's why they call it epigenetics when we are changing the game. The genetics is the deck of cards that you were dealt with, but we can manipulate that with nutrition, which is what our company does, and change the outcome. So that's what we're trying to do. So a peptide is just 2 or more amino acids that are in a chain. Insulin was the first one we discovered in our bodies. And
so insulin is a peptide.
It's a peptide.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that peptides are a big deal right now.
They're a huge deal. So like growth hormone is a peptide, but they've been able to cut it in different fragments and they each have different actions. So there are over 7,000 that our body makes that we know of, and they have different biological activities. But this is a big part of anti-aging medicine, is finding peptides that do various things. Unfortunately, our state of health in our country, the industry, makes money off of sick people. They don't want wellness, and they are actively shutting down our access to peptides and anti-aging modalities that we have. But I'm hoping with the new administration that we can reverse a lot of this, because these are amazing. But the reason we have what we have now is because Big Pharma is still making money off of these peptides. So they're actually, GLP-1 is considered an incretin. That's the big name for all of these hormones, and glucagon is one. But GLP-1 and GIP.
So incretin is
just the overall name for the hormones, peptides that are affecting, that actually stimulate release of insulin from the pancreas and kind of regulate the whole sugar balance. So the ones we're going to talk about tonight are GLP-1 and GIP. And then they call that gastric inhibitory peptide because that's what it does. It slows digestion down. But now I learned that they've got a new name for it, which I don't like because it's really hard to pronounce. Glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide. I'm just sticking with GIP.
Thanks. GIP.
GIP.
That's not our main focus tonight. It's just coming in.
No, but our company is studying that now.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you got to have a balance between these hormones. Glucagon causes the liver to release blood sugar. So if your blood sugar is getting low, it's going to release it so that your blood sugar stays in a safe range. Insulin is going to decrease the blood sugar. So you want them in balance. And that's one of the things with aging gets out of balance, that we get resistant to our insulin. So the insulin levels keep going up to try to keep our sugars where they need to be. And then I said before, insulin slows our metabolism down and makes us store fat. So you get into the snowball effect. So we don't want...
Say that again slow.
Yeah.
And so they get
Insulin slows down our metabolism and makes us get fat. It stores fat. And you need insulin, absolutely, to deal with when you eat, your blood sugar goes up. You need the insulin to bring it back down, but you don't want it high all the time, which is what happens when you get insulin resistant. And a lot of that is muscle loss as we get older, especially if you're not going to the gym. That's why strength training, and you know that from your background, strength training becomes so much more important the older you get, so that you have the muscle mass to take up the insulin.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're big on that.
Okay, so when you eat, obviously your sugar is going to go up. So what happens is these L cells in your intestine, as the sugar gets down there, turn on to release the GLP-1. And that when you do that, and it also does the GIP, but it reduces the sugar production in the liver. So it shuts off. You don't need the sugar coming out of your liver after you eat. So it shuts that off. And it also slows the stomach from emptying. It slows your digestion down. And that reduces your appetite because your stomach is full longer. And it will ultimately reduce your food intake because you feel full and you feel full longer. And that's partly through effects on the brain. But the glucagon is the hormone that tells the liver to release the blood sugar. So it's going to block that in the fed state. It'll turn back on.
The main concept we want to get is that it's the GLP hormone is reducing the sugar, the glucose coming out of the liver. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Because when you're eating, you don't need that. Now you'll, several hours after eating, or if you're doing, intermittent fasting, things like that, the liver's going to release that, or glucagon's going to come out and release that so that your blood sugar doesn't get too low. But the other thing that the GLP-1 does, they have the muscle take up insulin, completely independent of the whole pancreas thing. So that helps with the insulin resistance too. And I love this. They're looking at it with the brain, that they're doing so many studies, but it helps in memory formation. Now, in our body, typically...
What I heard is it helps in the liver, it helps with our muscles, and it helps with our brain. GLP hormone, correct?
Right, and you're going to hear something else too that it does in a minute. I think it's the next slide, what it does with the pancreas. But what happens is that hormone is very short-lived in our body. We release it, it does its work, and then our body breaks it down with something called DPP-4. So what they had...
Say it again, say it slower.
Okay, so it's released, it does its work, tells the liver, tells the pancreas what to do, and then our body breaks it down. So it's not something that hangs around for very long. The DPP-4 does. And that's also problematic as we age, because we're not producing as much and we don't want it to be broken down. We need it up longer.
So
DPP-4, and don't ask me how to pronounce that.
No, but it breaks down our GLP-1, right?
Right.
That breaks it down. The DPP-4 breaks down our hormone that we so desperately need.
Right. And that's what they had to do with the drugs, is figure out a way that our body couldn't break it down so fast. And they got better at it, because initially it had to be dosed twice a day, but then they got a weekly thing. So they figured out a way to keep it up longer, the levels. But LifeVantage has done that too, but in a very different way. There's also drugs called DPP-4 inhibitors that are also indicated for diabetes to help your own GLP-1 stay up, but they're not near as effective as the GIP stimulants, because we don't have enough GIP to start out with.
Can you remind me what GIP is again?
Oh, I should be saying GLP-1. They're both, we'll get into it, but they work together. They're very, very similar hormones.
Okay.
But the reason I'm mentioning GIP is the latest drugs are working with both hormones, and it's been less side effects and much better efficacy. and they're going to come out with a third. But that's why I was really excited to find out. Of course, why wouldn't we? We have great people, but they're researching, if our product is activating GIP. We really don't know yet, or maybe they'll tweak it a little bit. But the GIP is in the K cells, and they're in the upper intestine where the L cells are in the lower. So you're getting, your small intestine and your large intestine involved. It works really the same way. The minute you eat, it releases. And this is the really cool part. They both work together. Now, I told you at the beginning, 80% of the pancreas is gone typically with diabetes. And this helps you make more of the cells that secrete insulin. It's actually helping put the pancreas back together.
Wow.
In a diabetic. Yeah.
Say that again. Say that one statement. It helps put the
pancreas back together. Yes. And that explains so much, that I've seen clinically. I've been using these drugs for just about 20 years now, and everything got better. And so I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And people that were on insulin, most of them I was able to get off insulin, probably because the pancreas improved. I didn't know that was one of the actions until I started delving deep. I just knew that I was seeing great results. And this is another thing that I love, because I suffer from bone loss, is bone formation. So in addition to some of our other products that we know help with bone formation, this does too. And now this was interesting. When they said enhance the glucagon response, it didn't quite make sense to me, but because the GIP also causes fat deposition. But what I learned at my conference is when you combine it with the GLP-1, the net result is good. You're actually burning fat, and you're keeping the sugar from being too high. So
you just said something like the GIP does something with fat.
The GIP, if by itself, I think there's a slide I'll show you in a minute. Okay. And then also the GIP is one of the main things that's involved in memory formation. They both work. They both work on appetite suppression through the hypothalamus in the brain. And they're both broken down quickly by the DPP4. Yeah, here's where it shows. Like over here on this side, you've got the GIP.
Go slow on this, okay?
Okay, so you've got bone formation and fat accumulation. But when you take it with a GLP-1, there's not fat accumulation. You'd have an X here. So these two hormones, you want them both. They work together. And I would strongly suspect that our product is doing that, but we'll have to find out. So you can see as far as the pancreas, the actions are about the same. They both work on memory. And they said that the GLP-1 over here with food intake, but they're both going to do it because they slow the digestion process, and your stomach will stay full longer. When your stomach's full, it cuts off the hormone that makes you hungry, that tells you I need to eat. So that's good. You want to stay full longer, especially if you're trying to only eat 1 or 2 meals a day. So gastric just means stomach. So it slows the gastric emptying. But I love the fact that it has good things on the heart, makes the heart pump better. But you're getting the cardiac protection too for other ways, because it treats inflammation. Very anti-inflammatory.
Wow.
So
hormone is reduces what we call stress. I think we're not supposed to use that other word, but stress on the body, right?
Yeah, we can call it inflammaging stress.
I get it.
Yeah, so far that's not off limits, I don't think. But one of the problems that happens, and you probably heard that, is we accumulate fat in our liver, and that is really bad. And some people are getting non-alcoholic, they call steatosis, which is fat in the liver, which can lead to cirrhosis. It's not a good thing. And they didn't really have any drugs to treat it. Guess what? This pulls the fat out of the liver. I've seen people with fatty liver completely reversed in 1 year on these products.
On the GLP-1s, right?
On the GLP-1s. And then reducing the tissue inflammation, one of the labs that I look at is what they call highly sensitive CRP. And that is released with inflammation. And I use our signature product, ProTNM, and that usually will bring this down. But when you combine it with the drugs, it's just faster. So I'm excited.
What is CRP?
It's just a marker for inflammation.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
But it doesn't really tell you where it's coming from, and that can be hard. Like I had somebody today, his is really high, and I don't really have any clues. You know, it could be that he's got something bad going on, but one of the first places I look at is, do you have a root canal? Is there dental pathology that you're not feeling? You know, so you have to be like a detective. Where's it coming from? But these, because they're improving the insulin, the fatty accumulation, it's helping reduce the atherosclerosis, that plaque buildup, the blockage in your blood vessels. So it's reducing heart attacks and strokes. And it's doing that also because your cholesterol's not a problem unless it's oxidized, which is what happens with free radical accumulation. It's decreasing that. So that's one of the reasons it reduces oxidative stress as well. But they found that there's multiple papers now on doing beneficial things for the heart and the kidneys and the immune system, basically because it's decreasing those pro-inflammatory cytokines that are released, so you're not having that chronic inflammation. Improvement in memory, they're studying these drugs for Alzheimer's. And then I already said it improves the pancreatic function. So, and it was the first time when we first started on these, we would do an abdominal circumference on people. It's the first time diabetics actually were losing their belly fat and losing weight. It was just so amazing.
I mean, you've been doing the hormone with drugs, we'll say,
Right.
for 20 years. So you know this hormone, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, fascinating.
Okay, so why are we not making enough? Well, now that we know it's, you know, produced in our intestines are a wreck because of the toxins, the bad food that we're doing. We don't cultivate the right bacteria, and we don't make what we call short chain fatty acids, which are what healthy microbiome, those little bacteria in there, need the short chain fatty acids to eat and be healthy. So we're not going to be able to make the GLP-1 if we don't have a healthy bacterial balance or microbiome.
So those are like the good bugs in our gut.
Good bugs. We want the good bugs. And so this is the result of a bad gut. We've talked about metabolism is going to slow down. You're going to gain weight, get the insulin resistance, and cholesterol always goes up with age. I think some of that is a protective effect on our nervous system, because our nervous system is made of lipids, basically. And so we need our cholesterol, and we do not need to lower our cholesterol, you know, in the basement because we need it, but we don't want it to be oxidized. We want it to be in a good, healthy form. Let's see. Yeah, so that's pretty good. So this is what's happening when you age. All right, so when doing this research, and then it was confirmed.
Let me just recap. So
Okay.
This is GLP-1 as a tool to help us be the best version of ourselves, right?
Right. You know, and really reduce
down.
And you can get tests now that look at your age, not your biological age, but look at other markers of aging. And ideally, you want to be younger than the number of the years you've lived on the earth. And you can do that with all these interventions. And I think this is going to be one of the hugest interventions we can do, because that dysregulated insulin glucose is what's causing heart disease, which is the #1 killer.
Wow.
And at the conference I went out to, they just reiterated that there's so many papers out now how this is increasing your health span by decreasing the oxidative stress. This other is a fancy word, cellular senescence. For some reason, we make old cells zombie cells that are awful. They're inflammatory, they're aging, and our body's supposed to get rid of them with a process called autophagy, which is basically take it out the trash, but that slows down with aging and toxicity. So these cells stick around, cause more inflammation, cause more aging, and they can end up with some serious diseases. Everyone seems to struggle with their memory as we get older, especially short-term memory. But by increasing your GLP-1, you're actually improving this. So you're improving your metabolic function. And I didn't go into a lot of detail, but there's papers out there that helps with DNA repair, because, you know, oxidative stress, sunlight, I think that's where most of us see the results of DNA being damaged by sunlight. You know, you see it in your skin. and it's helping with that. And then it's enhancing autophagy, mitophagy. That's just taking out the trash, getting the old accumulation of just junk in your cells and senescent cells. It's getting them out. You want that. You want to get rid of it. And mitophagy, that's refers to our mitochondria, which make, the vast majority of our energy. And that is a key function of aging, why people don't have the energy that they used to, because the mitochondria are diminishing in number, because they're highly susceptible to free radical damage, oxidative stress. So they're decreasing in numbers, and then they're not functioning well. So it's a double whammy. And guess what? GLP helps.
I love that. I love that.
All right, so these are the drugs that I'm sure you've heard of. And agonist means that they're giving you more GLP-1. You're not making it, but they're giving it to you, and they're decreasing the breakdown. So they roughly last a week in the body, and then you got to dose again. And I'm sure you've like Victoza and Saxenda. That's the same ingredient that's in Ozempic and Wegovy, but they were daily injections, and they caused a little more nausea. And this is the new tirzepatide and Zepbound that do both. And we found less side effects and more results quicker with that. But coming now, they're going to be a triple one with a glucagon receptor agonist. I don't know when that's going to be out, but I know people are excited about it.
Love it.
But any drug, there's going to be a side effect. And you have to know that when you prescribe drugs, because you need to know how to manage it. So I think a lot of this is the problem, I guess, with the GLP-1 drugs is that they make it very, very easy to not eat. And people don't necessarily change their bad habits. They just eat less of the junk food, and they're not getting proper nutrition, or they're trying to lose weight too fast. They're not going to the gym, and so they're losing muscle along with the fat. They'll get really saggy skin, and some people get hair loss. Again, I think it's not an effect of the GLP-1. It's more of an effect that they're not eating. And I mean, I've watched it. You really need to make a commitment to getting healthier and eating good foods, because I see people that do hit the gym, they eat quality foods, they eat enough protein, they don't have those problems. Constipation is probably the one you hear about the most in the news. And then if you think about it, it's slowing everything down. So if you're prone to constipation and you're not having a bowel movement every day, well, it's going to get worse. So you need to make sure you're moving your bowels. And nausea was a huge side effect with the earlier. With the dual agonist, it's much, much less. I used to have to prescribe the anti-nausea medicines so that they could tolerate the drug, but those are constipating. So then you have double trouble. And then it can cause, same thing in the gallbladder. That's part of your digestive system. It can slow down, and you can you have more gallstones if you're prone to it. But again, these things can all be managed. So that
And
really
dollars, right? And then it's expensive. It can be expensive, right?
Oh my gosh. The typical price is $900 to $1,000 a month for these drugs. Now, if you get a compounded version, which the FDA is trying desperately to shut down, when we can still get it, it's about half of that. But they are very expensive. And, they said at the conference that after somebody's been on them for a year or two and has reached their weight, that 2/3 of the people are maintaining their weight loss. That's not really been my experience. Most of them balloon right back up because they haven't made the healthy changes that they needed to do. But these are the take-home, brain, stomach, pancreas. And it's going to lower your food cravings, because when your stomach is full, it cuts off that hormone that makes you want to eat.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, this is impactful. This is life-changing right here.
Oh, okay. So I told Jill earlier, I had somebody come in and I had prescribed the Mounjaro to her, and she came back in and she cried and she said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you. You don't know what it's like to be hungry 24/7. She said, "I've been hungry all my life, and it inhibits, my whole life." She said, "I have to go outside and I have to distract myself so I don't eat." it was just, she was so thankful. She said, it's taken away that hunger. I can live life again, and we call it food noise, but that's awful. People, they're suffering with that. So this is where we're going to pivot a little bit, because I would much rather get my body to do what it's supposed to do. And that's what we're going to do.
This is what I've been looking for.
Right. Well, and it's not just for weight loss. As you can see, there's so many other reasons to activate that hormone. And Jill's a good example. She doesn't need to lose weight. I don't really need to lose weight. I just wanted the health benefits of it. And, and I'm not losing, but I know that I'm improving my body composition, because people have been, you're losing weight again, you're losing weight. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just, getting healthier.
So, and the story is, I'll share my story later on, but this is powerful. What
It
I
is
right now,
very
what
powerful.
I'm feeling. So listen.
And it does positive things too on the brain. Some of it is just improved mood. I don't know if it's, a direct effect, or, when people told me, food was my comfort, food was my addiction, and they have this sadness because no longer do they want to eat, but then they get excited about what's going on with their body and they're okay with it. But they said that at the conference that depression is actually down, suicide rates are down, because this is making people feel better. And I've had people say, my pain, my inflammation, it's gone. I feel better. I feel normal again.
There's weight loss, Deb's said that I didn't need to lose weight, but I had suffered from chronic fatigue. And I'm a gym rat. We trained heavy, and I couldn't do that anymore. I'm not sure. I think it's a direct correlation. I've been ramping up my workouts. I think I'm sure Dr. Viglione could talk on that in terms of the science of it. I'm able to strength train heavier than ever before in years. Mental clarity, energy. I'm not having to nap. This is a game changer. And body composition is shifting because I couldn't work out as hard as I normally would. So beautiful, beautiful story on this is what you're looking at right now. I actually took it out of the package so you guys could see. If you're a guest on the line tonight or just learning, there's 2 caplets we take in the morning. I think Dr. Viglione will go on it. And also, since you got the picture up, this powder, and I was a little worried about the powder, but it actually, I put it in water and it tastes amazing, and I just drink it, wherever I'm going in the car or wherever. And it was way easier than I had imagined. It dissolves very quickly. So with that,
I was worried because
we're running.
Protein powders have a lot of aftertaste that I don't like. This doesn't do that. Mm-hmm. But my daughter, she just puts it in her mouth and then chases it with a bottle of water. So
love it. Love it. Let's hear about this product.
Well, the other thing with you, Jill, I suspect that you probably got an inherited problem with your mitochondria. So I can see where that mitophagy is probably kicked in. You're improving your energy. You're improving your muscles' uptake of the glucose so that actually you can exercise. You probably weren't getting the glucose to the muscle like you should have been, but now you are.
Love it. Love it. I'm so excited.
Okay, so this is the human study that LifeVantage did with the 2 products we had up there. And it was a 12-week study. As I tell everybody, you've got to give this the 3 months. But it increased LP production by 140% on average in 12 weeks. That is absolutely huge. And it's progressive. It's going to do it along the way. But this is where I'm just mind-blowing, okay? We've been talking about the drugs. All they do is give you GLP-1. Our product increases your receptors. The GLP-1 can't work if it doesn't bind to a receptor. So we're increasing the receptors. So we should get even better efficacy, better results. And just like the drugs do, it's decreasing our breakdown, like that DPP4. It's slowing that. And I'll show you the genes that are activated to do that. So not only are we making more, we've got more receptors, and we're not going to break it down as fast. And I think the receptors is a big, big issue, because I have people on the max doses of the drugs and their weight loss plateaus, but it took max doses to even start the weight loss. And I thought they probably don't have receptors. Okay, so the average weight loss was healthy, 1 to 2 pounds a week. Weight Watchers always 1 to 2 pounds a week. Any more than that is really not a healthy weight loss. There'll be too much muscle loss, and you don't give your skin a chance to improve. But I know some people, there's quite a bit of people that I've heard stories that they lost it. Now, you may not do it at first because you're, getting all that upregulated, and you go like any weight loss program, you may not lose for, 2 or 3 weeks, and then it'll drop off. So the average is just 1 to 2 pounds a week. But this is a little, they also did a test tube study. That was the people study, test tube study. You can see the green, I believe it is the GLP-1 and how much it went up.
That's powerful, powerful. Just with food, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's a food product. So what's happening when you take these products, the nutrient is entering the gut. Then the bacteria is how you digest your food. It's breaking down fibers. So the powder has a lot of what we call resistant starches that are critical in making your short chain fatty acids, which is the food that your little bacteria in there need. Also, resistant starches help keep you full longer. But those short chain fatty acids then bind to those L cells, and that stimulates the GLP-1. Actually, it stimulates the precursors to GLP-1 to be released. But then this gene, the GCG gene, actually is what's stimulated to make the pro-glucagon or GLP-1. Then the PCSK1 cleaves it then into the GLP-1. So those are 2 genes, keep your eyes on it, that our product is doing. Then once it's done its job, it goes out into the fluid that goes between all of your, the lymph system, but it's between all of your organs, and then it enters the bloodstream, goes everywhere in the body. Then our body's going to break it down with the DPP-4. But again, we don't want that DPP-4 working so quickly because we want to keep that level up longer. So this is what they found with both of the products, that GCG gene that makes the precursor, 95% activation of that gene. That's just unbelievable. And then it upregulates the one that cleaves it, 32%. So you now have the active GLP-1 in the body. And then it increased the receptors. This is the part that I'm so excited about, because we're going to increase our receptors. And then we are downregulating the DPP-4. So we're activating all those genes in a positive way to get the results that we want. That's why we call ourselves the activation company.
I love it. It's very complex, but the bottom line is it just makes you the best version of yourself with this GLP hormone. That is amazing. That is amazing.
And your body's doing it. That's the beauty of it. Okay, and so this was kind of, they did a questionnaire. I think it was just at the beginning and the end. And these are the results. People took back control of their relationship with food. And I can tell you that because I'm somebody, if it tastes good, I'm a 3 helping person. I don't need to eat 3 helpings. It's terrible. And that was one of my goals too. When I saw this, I said, I've got to take control over this. I'm not really a snacker, but I eat too much at meals, far more than the body needs. And one of the biggest things you can do to reduce the aging process is reduce your caloric intake. And there's groups of people who that's what they do, but miserable. You don't want to be hungry all the time. So this is not making you hungry all the time. So you can reduce your portions. You feel full quicker. So I know now, I usually just put less on my plate. Like I'm a big meat lover. Thank you, Sean. Sean doesn't like that I eat meat, but I would eat a big 12 ounce or 15 ounce ribeye, and I eat it all. Now I put, maybe 6, 8, not even 8 ounces. And if I put too much on, I'm done. I quit before I finish it. So I don't eat as much. And like last night, I had one of my favorite meals. I've only been on this for a month. And that was a 3 helping meal. And I did 1 1/3. And I was completely satisfied. I wasn't bloated. I felt good. But reducing the sugar craving, again, that's probably a lot due to you're cultivating the right bacteria in your intestines. So you're kicking those bad guys out that make you want to eat sugar. And you're going to choose smaller portions, less hungry, ate less at meals. And now hopefully you'll eat for health and not emotional eating. I can't promise you that you won't stress eat, because I'm only in my first month, but I've had a lot of stress, and yeah, I still sometimes hit that bag of potato chips, stress eating. But that's my weakness. I like salty, crunchy stuff. But this is the ingredients that are actually doing the activation. This is in the core product. Those are the 2 capsules that you take.
Can I stop?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
what I always think is we use food, so that's Nutra, right? And genomics. So we use food to flip our genes, or in this case, the GLP hormone. So again, this is just food that's synergistically put together to do what Dr. Viglione has been talking about for the last hour. So she's talking about these 2 capsules right here. I'm not sure if you can see them. And go ahead with what you're going to go over about.
Well, and I asked our research people, there's so many things in these products. I'm like, how did you know? I mean, how did you know where to even start with this? And they said there was actually published literature out there that they used to kind of get an idea of what they wanted to start with the study. But they found that these 8 ingredients did that gene activation that we just talked about. But I'm going to go through the different products. And you have to remember, sorry, I need to take a drink.
We're almost at 9 o'clock, so we might want to.
Okay.
Well, these are interrupting you too.
Okay. Well, you can look at this, but it shows like chromium and berberine are real important for sugar balance. Hesperidin is an anti-inflammatory. Matcha, you can get that as a tea, and I like the cognitive benefit. Eggplant, people, why is the eggplant in there? Purple foods purple foods are kind of rare if you look at it compared to other plants, and they're so rich in nutrients and polyphenols that are good for you. So that's in there. And I like this honeysuckle, decreases swelling. It's antiviral.
Love it.
But that's the product, and you can find this on the website, so you can see. And one of my pet peeves with nutritional companies, when I'm trying to look up what's in them, they make it very hard to find. We're very transparent. This is what's in it. And this is in the powder. And these 2 products work together differently to activate that, because the powder alone will activate the GLP-1 in a very different way than the core is doing. But those are the resistant starches. Kombucha, everybody knows that's got probiotics. MCT oil is usually in most weight loss programs because it's very easily digested. It's a good source of energy, and it's easily digested, and it keeps you full longer. This is interesting. I didn't know about the baobab tree of life, that it's bursting with nutrients, and I think it's predominantly in Africa, but they literally used it for everything.
I know when I looked at it, I was like blown away. It's so full of nutrients. It's amazing.
And then there are 2 probiotics in it. There's 4 forming probiotics, and that's important because they get past the stomach acid and get down into the intestine where they belong.
Love it.
And that's just the thing. All right. So these 2 other genes I wanted to talk about briefly, the PPY, pancreatic polypeptide, those are the ones that are primarily decreasing the digestion, the gastric emptying, and they're delaying that rise in glucose after eating so it doesn't spike, and that'll help regulate the energy balance better. And then the PYY gene, basically the same kind of thing. So it's putting a brake on the digestive system, slowing things down. And you're going to absorb more of your nutrients doing that because they're staying there longer. And you can see the gene activation there. I mean, 1,280%, that's huge.
Wow, that's incredible. That's why we're feeling good. That's why we're
Yeah. So the practical points I have is give it 3 months. You've got to work with your body. It's not going to be an instant thing. Be patient. And they found that the core is best to take first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. And then the powder is going to be very individual because when you feed your good bacteria, they produce a lot of gas. That's their byproduct. So you have to adjust to it. And people know that when they start a probiotic, they'll be more gassy. So in my case, I actually pooped like a ton, like 11 times the first day I took it. So I don't tolerate a whole lot of it because I have opposite effect. But anyway, I'm doing better. Like I'm finally getting rid of my bloat. One of my reasons for being attracted to this is when you look at how many ingredients are in there, I'm like, this is amazing. I think it's going to be one of the best gut healers there is. And I plan to use that powder on its own to heal people's guts. Let's see.
You're just on 2 scoops, right? You're just on 2 scoops.
I'm just on 2 scoops. And it's better to split it. Like I think that what will come with your directions is say, do 2 scoops per week and then go to 4. You may want to slow that down a bit. And they are going to start selling the products separately because I'm building up a lot of powder. Obviously, I'm not using as much. But the core, absolutely, I'm not missing that. But one of the things I found is fried foods, heavy creams, spicy foods, you're not going to tolerate as well, primarily with the drugs. But I think it's the same with this because it's going to be heavy. It's going to be too much. You want to eat your nutrient-dense foods. You want to eat more protein-based. And, you're going to feel more like exercise, like Jill, you're in the gym, you're doing more because you're going to feel better. You're going to want to improve yourself. Let's see. Now, this is one thing that they asked me at the last meeting that I suspect, like if somebody is on the weight loss medications, that as you build up your receptors and you increase your own production of GLP-1, you may find that the drug is too strong. It's causing more side effects. And I experienced this after a month of being on this. I decided it was stupid. I'm going to Vegas. I don't want to overeat. I don't want to drink too much alcohol. So I took a small dose. They call it microdosing of the tirzepatide. And boy, did I regret it. I was nauseated for 5 days. And the drug had never done that to me before. And I thought, oh, I've got more GLP-1. I've got more receptors. I didn't need to take this stuff. Not doing it again. I think I'm on my way.
The natural is working. The natural is working based on.
The natural is working. And drink lots of water because that's one thing that they said that it may decrease your thirst just the way it decreases your hunger. So you may not have that signal, I need to drink water. And water is how you're going to flush those toxins out.
Oh,
so those are more practical points.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any, or let's see, I think that's. Oh, so this is sold exclusively through LifeVantage consultants. You can sign up as a customer and you get a discount if you have it on a monthly order. And I tell everybody, you can always cancel your monthly order, but commit yourself. This is like anything. Make a commitment. You're going to do this. You're going to get through the gas or whatever, you're going to work with this. You can also become a consultant if you're excited about what this company does with gene activation. You want another source of income. You want to help others get activated. Be a consultant. And that has been the most amazing part about being in this company is I met so many wonderful people, like-minded people. This is my tribe. My kids go, you don't have any friends unless they're LifeVantage. But it's true because you're around people that are positive. They want to increase their health. They're like me. So, and you'll have to get back with the person who invited you and be patient. The orders have been far more than the company anticipated. And so they've been back ordered. They're starting to fill the orders now. And I'm just excited to hear people's stories, and what's happened. So I don't know. We were kind of.
You want to go ahead and.
Yeah, let's go ahead and cut it off and then we can talk a little bit.
Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and wrap up the recording and just want to thank each and every one of you for watching. I know we went a little long with intense, amazing information, a great an hour of education, intense education with one of the most amazing doctors, state of Florida, nation, probably the world, because we're a global company and we work with the best and the brightest. And just thank you for your time. Thank you for all you do to impact lives. And we're signing off now. If you'd like to stay on a little bit longer, we'll take some Q&A offline, off the recording though. All right. Thank you, everyone. And I'm just going to stop the recording if I can. There, I got it. There you go.
Recording stopped.
All right. So if you have any questions, if you could put it in the chat. And I have a few stock questions. I think I've got it all set. I'll just type here, ask any questions. And if not, we'll just go ahead and wrap up for the night. I know we've gone a little long. I saw a couple hands up. So if you have any questions for the doc, I've got some hands raised, but can you type it in the chat for me? I got Alina Horton. I see your hand up. Can you type? And I see Tracy has a question. I don't know if we can you type it in the chat? Okay, someone's messaging me. Oh, it says chat disabled.
Oh,
Let me see. Oh, okay. I host and everyone. I got everyone now. See if that works, guys. Host and panelists can chat. Can you do it now? And Steve, it's Jill. If you want to go ahead, it's working. Yay! Thanks. If you have a question, you guys can put it down. I wrote down some stock questions. So we said the 12 weeks, stay on it a minimum of 12 weeks. Okay, I get, here it is. Crohn's patients. What about, can you see the questions, Deb?
I am super excited to use this with Crohn's and other bowel issues because of the anti-inflammatory. All the drugs are doing with Crohn's is decreasing your inflammation. That's what it's all about. And they're, the MIBs and MABs, they're not improving your microbiome. I think this shows more potential than anything that I've ever used. Of course, I'll start low and go slow, but I'm really excited to use, the